Um, I hope you all can hear and see us right now. As usual, there's a little bit of lag between what we're doing live on Restream and what we know you're seeing. So we're about to get started. And yeah, so drop us a message there on the chat if you have any questions, if you want to talk about any topics. Hi, Daniel. It's amazing to always see you here. Thanks for coming. And yeah, so the idea is basically a loose chat between Tejas, Fabian, myself, and you folks about developer experience and user experience. But before we get started, maybe we should run a little bit intro round. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Tejas, you start. Who are you? Why are you here? What's life? What are you drinking?
Not alcohol. I'm Tejas. I help with DevRel at Crab Nebula and other places, and I love the discussion. I love good discussions. I think every time we're together, Fabian, Attila, and me, we tend to have really great discussions. So I'm just here to hang out with my friends, and it's live streamed. But I think we're gonna have some great discussion. What I'm drinking is just actually it's just water with chemicals. It's caffeine-free Coke Zero. At this point, it's literally just black sweet water. Um, that maybe causes cancer. We'll find out one day. Anyway, that's me, Fabian.
Yeah, so me, full stack developer at Crabdemula. I love developer experience on UX. Yeah, good friend of you two guys. I'm happy to have a nice discussion about this. Yeah, very interesting topic because user experience it's everything for me because you are building product for people, developer experience, it's everything for me because I love tooling, I love playing, and it's also helping me to just do my job better. So I think it's cool that there's this discussion.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm Attila or Attila, um, whatever is easier for you. And I work in Crab Nebula as well. I work in DevRel, but I also do a little bit of product engineering. And the idea of this chat actually started from a conversation that Tejas and I end up having after one of my sample projects, I'd say, where I created a template for hybrid app with Tauri and Solid, and I got like super excited because I got very excited about tech. If we can summarize that Fabian likes tooling, you can say that I like awesome tech and I like to experiment with awesome tech. So this sparked as a conversation between Tejas and I that we talked a lot about what's the boundaries of investing your time in DX and when DX can help with UX. And then we decided, okay, so how about we take this live? And we immediately thought that Fabian should come together because one thing that he didn't say is that he's a TypeScript extremist.
Wow, I'm
So
flattered, I guess.
he can obsess with TypeScript, and he cannot go to sleep if types aren't perfect. So a lot of learnings that I get from TypeScript comes from Fabian's unrestful mind. Unrestful? Yeah, I think that's a word, right? Anyway, it is now. So yeah, so I think the first topic that I'd like to bring up is TypeScript purely a DX tool?
uh, I think before this should maybe define what's DX on UX, like because I think it's more general because I mean UX means user experience, and it's like broad. On dev DX, it's like developer experience, and it's also like very very large. For me, it's like unquestionable that both are related, because if your tool help you, for example, to produce less bugs or just to be aware of a bug is happening. The user at the end of the journey will be more happier because I don't know for you, but I don't like having bugs. So
Yeah, the counter to this, a lot of the elite hackers on social media will say, yeah, but if you just get good, you could just make great UX without the dev tools, without the DA.
yes, but it's yeah, and I think it's
I just want to clarify. Sorry,
yeah,
I just want to clarify. I don't
I
think
know,
that
but
way.
no, but it's cool.
I-
We need somebody to just have the counter argument. And
Yeah.
I think I also don't disagree. It just with any tools, if you have the time, you can do something good. On aside of software development, I also like woodworking, and I think it's a nice analogy because it's kind of the same. You can do everything with a piece of sandpaper if you have time. You just scratch away the piece of wood until it becomes a piece of furniture. And at some point, you need to decide: do I need to spend my time on toolings or on my project? On like every tools decision, it's always the same thing. It just if it's a one-time thing, just take your saw, you cut up, you are done. And it's the same. If it's a one-time thing, you can do it in JavaScript, you send it to clients, up, you are done. But if you need to do this 200 times, 1 million times, a thing like this, investing in the tooling, we call this investing. So it's an investment, it costs you something. But after you want your return on investment. So it will be more consistent, more reliable, and you can iterate on thing.
Interesting. What you've done, what you said is so good because even if you're the best, I'm thinking about how this fits
Yeah.
into the like, oh, but you just get good and you don't need developer tools argument. This is so good because you could be the best sandpaperist in the whole world. You could be like the world's greatest. Nobody has seen such sandpaper talent, but at the end of the day, still, like using sandpaper versus using one of these cool tools that spins the sandpaper for you, you're just never going to be as fast ever. You will never be as fast as a machine ever. You will never be as fast as an AI in some things ever, right? And so at some point, I like what you said. It's not just a matter of what you can produce, but a matter of what is the time domain of what you can produce with reasonable
And
quality.
it's also because at the end of the day, time is money. It's like why Ikea is good, not because they are crafting the best furniture ever, but it's because it's cheap. So you have more people that can have the thing. And between having a very fancy table that just takes, I don't know, 6 months to craft, and it costs hundreds of thousands of euro.
Yeah, but here's
nobody
the
can
thing,
afford.
like
Yeah,
IKEA, as cheap as it is, it's still not as cheap as plain wood. So you can ditch the developer experience and go buy wood and do like you do, actually, Fabian.
yeah,
You
but
do.
I mean,
But there's a thing
if I
like
buy a table in IKEA, I need what 1 hour to assemble it. If I buy wood,
yeah.
first I need the skill,
So
and I need to build
exactly.
the table.
Here's the point that I'm trying to close the loop on the metaphor
Yeah,
is that when we're building tooling or libraries or stuff like that, developers are also the users. So then we end up having two kinds of UX. The first one, that's for the developer that is immediately consuming your stuff. And then the second one, which is the end user or the user of your developer in this case. And I think that there's a room for that. Like, for example, we now at Crab Nebula, we are adopting Astro for the website. And then we just had a conversation about a friend of ours, Adrian, asked, okay, cool, can I have RSS, for example? And here's the thing, before that, it was SvelteKit, which would be significantly harder to have RSS there. But with Svelte, with Astro, it's just another route we create, and we have a plugin for that. And then, thanks, Alien, we have it. So if you folks don't know, Alien, that's in the chat, he works at Astro. So um, basically like that. So that's one thing that great DX helps us achieving great UX in this case. And then we could argue, okay, so but then Astro, like we all know how to write XML in the end. We could have figured out RSS by ourselves, but we didn't have to. And that's where DX kind of helps in my opinion. and that's what DX kind of is supposed to help UX. The problem for me is when we get too attached into having the best DX
Yeah,
possible, and we
of
sacrifice
course.
performance, for example.
Yeah, and it's my point also about woodworking, because sometimes you can also just go to this rabbit hole to want to have the perfect tool for one thing. But if you do, if I do one website and I do it once, I can write HTML. It's not it, spending 6 months of tooling. It's pointless. If I'm an agency and I just build thousands of website, spending my time to just build Astro on having something that I can just scale on, I have one command to deploy. Even just talking about deploying, I don't know if you remember before Heroku or stuff like this, it was like manual thing that works for years, but one mistake and your production is done. Now you have like one command and you deploy something. DX improve, that means that you can ship more often, more reliable, you on more often in more features. On the time you don't spend on just doing this manual works, you can also spend off just listening to your customer to fix stuff
Yeah.
or make more feature and things like this. And but you always have balance between tools. And it's why I think the woodworking analogy is working, because sometimes I want to play with tools, but you spend 1 week to build a tool just for winning 10 seconds. It just doesn't make any sense. But if you need to build 100 tables, building this jig, it's just no brainer. You can just after batch everything on everything. It's the same perfect and you win a lot of time. And it's the
Yeah, and
same with software development.
I think that's why the common disagreement with DX on social media and in some developer discussions is that, right? It's like nowadays we're being criticized for like you care way too much about some CLI that doesn't actually give you as much return on investment that you think it does. For example, you guys, and this is again, this is not me, this is just things
Yeah, of
you'll
course.
see on social media. People go like, you guys are moving everything to the server for what value? Like just do static. Just do server rent. Why is everything server rendered? Why server components? Like the performance benefits you get, if you even get performance benefits, are so negligible, because what you're doing effectively is you're moving a spinner from the browser to your server. The spinner is still there. You're still making the requests, and so the discourse is: does that DX matter, and does it affect UX? Again, none of these are my opinions. These are just popular opinions. I have my
So
own that I
this
will.
Daniel made a point where he made, what did he say here in the chat? He made an 80 euros. He made a table with 80 euros of wood, but he spent before 8,000 euros in tools. So I think that's like it's an awesome table. It's beautiful. I've seen it. I think you guys have seen it too as well. But it does make a point towards, okay, like, why are you investing so much in your tooling, where you could buy a table and you can put your plate on any table from Ikea, but then you're spending all this on this kind of stuff. But and that's a valid point, I think. Like, I know that Daniel has all these tools because he does a lot of woodwork, and then it compensates in this case. But that's what tooling is supposed to be about.
Right, but
We
After,
have
in
after
that
it's also it's depends, because I'm doing woodworking, and for example, I'm a hobbyist. So when I buy tool, I don't expect to make profit out of it. It's just because I enjoy doing tool. And same in terms of software development. I have my open source project. I can spend just hours crafting tools. It's my hobby, The tool is it's the goal. But when you think as a company, and it's also, if you go to YouTube and you see the makers, you have a lot of YouTube comments that just say, "Oh yeah, but you have like a 10,000 euro just table saw, CNC, blah blah blah. It's too expensive for a hobbyist, yes, but for a company, no, because just if you buy a CNC, you spend the time to learn things like this, and after it just work by itself. Just, and the
and
tool, pay by, and it's the same with like any nice tool, and it's where you need to draw the line. And if I have a tool, for example, in that just permit, like Typescript, that permit me to just avoid to send bug in production and to I mean, I used to have JavaScript code base before TypeScript was a thing on just refactoring. You rename just one thing in your code base, and you hope that you didn't forget something, and you know that you forget something. And yeah, this is like a lot of stress for the team and for your user, probably bugs and things like this. So investing in TypeScript at the first place, even if it can be painful, will have benefit for the end user because it's less bug maintainability. If you want to add a feature, it's easy to refactor because refactoring is part of the process of software development. So it's
Yeah, but I mean, look, TypeScript, I think the value is not questionable in most cases. In some cases, maybe people are using JS doc or something like this. But for most cases, yes, you catch bugs ahead of time. It works. I'm thinking more about DX that maybe negligibly affects UX. And by that, I mean this whole, I saved 30 milliseconds because I used this compression algorithm instead of that one. Or I'm using, I think, Bun and Node.js. I mean, that is even a measurable performance increase. Bun is way faster than Node.js. It is a different tool. It offers somewhat different DX because it's not fully a drop-in replacement, right? And dude, like the amount of time people spend discussing Bun versus Node.js, is it worth it, etc. Like the amount of time people spend arguing about this, I can build a production system on either one.
It's true, but just
Yeah,
just to take back the Bun example, I think, because you could just say, yeah, whatever, I can run my test in like 1 second instead of 10.
Well, does it affect UX? I guess.
So that's the thing that this kind of DX and also it brings a little bit of phrasing the UX as a fake UX improvement, and that kind of circles to the question that Alvin made about involving designers and more people into DX conversations, because it brings back to UX. So I was in Twitter or X some half an hour ago or so, and Dex is I forgot his handler on Twitter. He just made a comment about, okay, your product, you need to find that little aha moment where your user figures out, oh crap, I need this with all my life. And his example was, for example, merging branches on Planetscape. So he said, yeah, once that clicked for me, I cannot move away of that. And that's definitely a moment where it actually, like, Planetscape is probably not the best example in this case because the users are developers. So DX and UX boundaries get a little bit fuzzy in this case. But this is something that actually helps a product moving forward, where you can shape different data schemas, and then you can merge those schemas and put that into a main product. So you're basically having Git or Git for your data. So this is a great example of something that helps developers being more productive and creating integrations and things like that. But in the same way, it gives a nice UX for whoever is looking at the data and using the product. So I think that's a real metric. That's a real DX improvement that has a nice UX metric, as opposed as, okay, we made our compiler 15 times faster than Vite, but then those 15 times are actually 3 microseconds. Like,
right. And how does that affect my grandma who's using the product built with this? It does not. And this is where DX and UX just don't line up.
Yeah, but just because I like just to challenge, for example, improving your just compile time, if it's to 20 to 3 milliseconds, I personally don't care. But if you can just use Bun on you have all your tests that just normally take, 30 seconds, and you reduce this under 1 second. This can actually enable something amazing about CI, because before you just say, oh, every time I run the test, it's like expensive for the company in terms of time. I open a pull request, I need to wait, 10 minutes that my tests are running. Even locally, you run it, you have your fan spinning and things like this. It's a friction point. It's there. But if you put this on now, it's just negligible to run your tests. That means that on CI, you can run every commit. It costs nothing. On your machine, nothing. You can have Docker on your test running together live directly on your code base. And reducing the friction will make you just write more tests because it's more pleasant. And for example, I feel it just because I come from a TypeScript thing. And in TypeScript, the tests are just instant, and I'm used to it. And I'm writing Rust, and the tests are not as fast as JavaScript. I was spoiled. And as a result, I write less tests because it's just pain in the ass to just run them. But if you have the test in line and just you enter, and every time I press save, it's watch on its grid, just working TDD, it's like no brainer. Of course, I will do it.
Yeah,
It
but
just
how does any of this affect my grandma? Like at best, at
no,
best, at
yeah.
best, if there's a bug and compile time is faster, then you recognize the bug, you fix the bug, you git push, it's deployed, all of that is faster. So she'll get the better update faster. But in terms of just UX, her way of using the
Yeah.
product, how
I mean,
does that help?
it's for me, just if you have a nice tooling, you don't even notice it. It's not in your way. The thing is, when you have something in your way, it's like you have a new feature, and because the tooling is in your way, it's painful. So every time, just do you want this new feature? And this is where your grandma, she wants the latest feature. I know your grandma; she's very tech heavy, And it could be nice. And you are just discussing, you are in dinner with your grandma, and I want this new feature. No, grandma, I need to just migrate the database, run the CI, just no, it's too complex. No, you don't need this feature. No.
So
And it's the thing. If building something it's easy, you want to try this feature? Bam, bam, bam. You try it, put on the feature flag just for your grandma. It's amazing. It's not up. You take feedback. Up, you can give feedback directly in the application. You receive it in your stack. Up, you iterate fast because fast CI, fast thing. You can revert thing on you.
yeah, so
It just
I
to ease
I
a process.
agree. I agree with Fabian, and I think that there's also like the point that DX is not necessarily about immediate gains. So the point is the DX improvement or using TypeScript in your code base or spending 40 minutes creating that function overload that's going to allow my query to be extremely type safe and give me good intelligence. That's a true story. Fabian did that. Is it's good. It's good for my grandma and for everybody's grandma, because the next time I need to explain my code to Johan, for example, who is in the chat and has inherited a lot of my crappy code, he can the inference or the onboarding experience of my code, because the types are airtight, is way easier. So that means he doesn't need to wait for me to be able to pair with him. He doesn't need to sync with me to explain what was on my mind when I wrote that code. So, and that allows him to then jump into the code, do some stuff, and then jump out and go back and doing whatever he was doing. And then ultimately that leads the team to ship faster. So,
Yeah,
and I think we kind of missed the sight on that when we start talking about DX versus UX in this case, because there's always those compound effects with DX, because DX is going to affect productivity, which can affect efficiency, which then can affect better features. What you're going to do with the time you have at your hand, it's your fault. It's not DX fault in the end.
But we have a nice question about like DX UX, and so far we are talking about like increasing performance, speed, and things like this. That also just increase UX, because if you have a low network, just thing at the end of the day. But
no,
I agree.
no, we're talking about build performance, not
okay, bit performance. So this I agree, and this is like low hanging fruit. But also
Jacob raised a nice point about build performance, though, when he talks about Vite being changing from roll up to roll down, where it does have bigger gains when you look at the compound effect of everybody using Vite and CIs and stuff like this.
Yeah,
but ST here is making some really great comments, I think.
Yeah. But it's where I also want to say, because for me, better DX, it's, for example, I'm front-end developer, and I'm picking very carefully what component library I will use for writing accessible components, on nice. And it's the thing, it's just if you have those kind of library with a nice DX with auto completion to just me, I have a linter, just your grandma don't care about my linter. But if every time I just forget a title somewhere, so the linter just say no, you should put a title. So if you have a screen reader, you need to be here. And this is DX on directly impacting the user experience.
See, this is such a great point. And this is where I think the tension is, because DX can affect UX positively, as the case you just brought. But DX can also just be us chasing rabbit holes that don't affect my grandma.
But like any tool, just because sometimes you focus too much on the tool or not on the product. So it's where it's an interesting conversation. It's just...
But okay, so I think for me, I've fallen into the trap many times of
course
of
we all
chasing
do.
the tool, right? And so I'm sure a lot of people listening to this also fall into this trap often. If you're listening to this and you fall into the trap, let us know in a comment. But I'm curious, what are some ways that we can get better at this? I mean, you probably, as engineers, have to deal with this all the time, where you're like, oh, I really want to play with this Zod thing, but Zod is not going to help. Maybe, I don't know, Zod is great. I love Zod, but maybe there's the case that, this tool is not going to help me. It's not going to help the final product that, someone's grandma is going to use. So how do you regulate this in yourself?
Yeah, but this is hard to define, because also at the end of the day, we are human. On human, you need motivation. And if you are working in a bad environment, so with bad DX, or if I go back to the woodworking example, you are in a workshop that is full of dust with tool everywhere, and you just cross the room and you just bump to every piece of furniture. You can't think, you can't be creative. And it's the same in software development. You start a feature and you have something exploding, bam, 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 and it's very hard to balance, to just say, oh, I need to refactor. And sometimes, no, nobody cared about the refactor. Yeah, the team care, because you also need to keep your team sane and want to work on this code base to improve the product for the clients.
Yeah, so ST is making no hostages in the comments. So
cool.
I think ST means super truth, and I totally agree. So
hey, I'm a fan of Electron, by the way.
And I'm gonna I don't want to go too philosophical, but I'll have to. So if DX is supposed to help us ship better and more efficiently, when we sacrifice UX for DX, do we have DX in the end? I don't think so, because the whole point of DX is actually allowing you to ship better. If you're shipping worse because you're focusing on the wrong aspects of what you're developing, then you missed a stop already. And that's why I have a clear conscience on saying, yeah, invest on DX, because I truly believe that protecting performance and accessibility and your grandma's desire is implicit on everything that I'm talking about when I talk about DX. So yeah, you should use Zod, but you should use Zod if that's going to help you have better data validation. And then therefore you're going to have less bugs, or you're going to clean up that messy API that you cannot control and stuff like that. Because Zod brings type safety to your runtime, if anybody is not familiar with Zod. So that's important, to basically bring all that safety that you believe you have with TypeScript in your IDE and put that on the browser's runtime, because that's where it matters. And then it also brings back to the fact about some building tools using Rust instead of JavaScript, because Rust has that by default. It's not necessarily about Rust being sheer faster than JavaScript, but it's also about it being faster by default and more secure by default. And then that means that I have less space to mess up my code.
I think Mikhail makes a really good point here, and that I think is the spirit of this, right? He says, as a user, I don't care if it's Electron or Delphi under the hood, as long as it works, as long as grandma's happy. But I think to Fabian's point, if you go to work and you work in Delphi and you don't like Delphi, then you're not going to give your best. In fact, you maybe don't know how to give your best, because it's a workshop that's full of dust everywhere and you're bumping into things and so on. Not to say Delphi is bad, it's just the amount of developers who are fluent in Delphi may be low, and that's why. Similar with Drizzle here from ST. I guess maybe the solution could start with asking when we see tools like, hey, how does this affect my end user? Because what someone said, yeah, ST again, ST is really.
We should invite him.
Yeah, we should invite him. Honestly, ST, come up here and speak because it's wild. ST says, people aren't disagreeing about whether or not we should have a linter. It's about the fact that most modern desktop apps are made with Electron, for example. I don't know what that means specifically. However, we're all building with Tauri sometimes, frequently, and if I remember correctly, the context for even this discussion is someone responding to some open source project you made, Attila, saying why is this needed? Because ultimately, if you make a desktop or mobile app with Tauri or Electron, both developer tools, you get a desktop. My grandma gets a desktop app. She doesn't really know the difference. It may take longer to download if the Electron bundle is bigger because it ships a whole browser and so on. Again, this is not a dig on Electron. That's just how these things work. So she may notice, okay, it takes an hour to download instead of 20 minutes to download. Sure. But the app she downloads and uses, will she notice a difference when it's built with Tauri or Electron or something else or capacitor? It doesn't matter.
But after, I think it's interesting because if your application need to be updated once per week, your grandma need to wait 1 hour per week instead of 20 minutes. And you bring back just, is Tauri better than Electron with this use case? Because, creating an application for yourself, it's something, but creating an application that you need to distribute and update regularly to a lot of people, reducing the size will mean less cost to the infrastructure that basically can also lower the price of the final product. So UX, because, if your product is less expensive, it's accessible to more product, to more people. It's also good for the planet. We care, we don't, but still, it's a side effect of having a smaller bundles.
But
yeah,
my
your grandma
grandma
just can have your application just more regularly updated on things like this. And she doesn't have to just buy a fiber connection to have
and just to clarify again, we're
Yeah.
not saying not saying Electron is better than Tauri. Tauri is better than Electron.
No, this was just an example.
Here's a good example about DX over UX. I decided, I guess, to stream this to multiple channels. And then there was a lot of confusion in the chat because we're streaming right now, just for you folks to know, on Crab Nebula's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, and my X Twitter account somewhere.
Wow.
So that's a feature of our multi-streaming platform, and I thought it was a good idea. And we have all the comments in the same chat for us, but you folks are not seeing everyone. Elif Theory is behind the scenes making a great job bringing comments to the screen. So eventually you're gonna see everything, but that's what's happening right now. I'll figure out a better way in the future. Bringing back to the topic about the why comment, the comment was also towards, I'd say in that case it was a little bit naively making a dig against hybrid apps. Why are you shipping hybrid apps if you could just go and learn a native technology? And I think that's a case where if we focus maybe too much on the other side, or let's not write any framework and just do vanilla JavaScript because that can be inherently faster, then it becomes the point where you end up taking longer to ship something, or not even shipping something. If you're a shop that only has JavaScript knowledge, at some point you might be able to ship a POC and identify market value on your product with an Electron app, and then eventually performance becomes an issue, and then you start refactoring and so on, and then eventually you need something else, and then you go changing the tools for whatever the UX is best. I think that's what putting UX in front of DX means, not necessarily going sheer performance and diving into rabbit holes, or I need an apple, so I need to invent the universe first.
But this is a really great. This is I think an excellent case for DX versus UX, right? Because you can create an iOS app, a to-do list. You could create a to-do list on iOS either with Swift or with JavaScript. Both are DX related topics, but the end app is maybe the same, maybe slightly worse if it's JavaScript because it's not native to the iOS language. And I think that's the context there. So the argument is, should you just write everything in Swift, or is JavaScript the worthwhile investment? Honestly, I don't know Swift, and I have no interest in learning Swift at this point in time because JavaScript gets me everywhere I need to go. Literally, even on smart TVs.
Also, if you write in JavaScript, maybe you will have a crappier app, but you will also have an app that can be deployed on Android. So it's like everything in life. It's a trade-off. Because if I want to write Swift, I need Swift developer, but maybe I already have JavaScript developer. So should I cut this like learning thing to just ship my product quicker onto a bigger market, or to just hire like Android developer, Swift developer, doing something very performant that just, at the end of the day, if it's a to-do list, I don't care about this millisecond, it's a checkbox. But maybe you care about it. It's really, we don't have any universal solution. It's like, it's case by case.
And I think the real excellence of engineering is constraints. And so if you have a constraint, then how good can you make something despite the constraint? One great example of this is there's a lot of hate nowadays about spinners, right? Spinners are bad. Nobody uses spinners. Everyone remove your spinners and use skeleton UI or something. But I keep thinking about how, look, if the app is that good, the spinners don't matter. For example, you go on x.com, dude, there's like 15 different spinners that appear. I don't care. I use this all the time. And similarly, if your constraint is, no, I don't know Swift. I don't want to pay a Swift engineer salary because I'm an early startup. I haven't even found product market fit yet. I want to do with JavaScript. Then I think that's fine. Use whatever dev tool you want as long as UX is the focus. Using even JavaScript with that constraint, with the performance constraint, you could make the most beautiful loading screen. For example, video games do a great job of this. They try to avoid loading screens, right? So this happens quite often. In a video game, you open a door and the next screen hasn't loaded yet, but they make the opening animation of the door so beautiful while the next screen becomes ready, you don't even notice. And this is what I'm saying.
Nintendo got my 6 and 7-year-old kids to watch the credits.
There you go. And so
because the credit was a game inside the game, so they were just picking the names. Like if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's Mario Wonders. Just the credits just come up with like an endless list of names, and they just enjoyed it. Like I never seen somebody enjoy credits before.
Yeah, and I do believe I actually watch credits when I finish the video games because I want to just acknowledge all the work that went into it. But I can see how that would be super boring. For some people, and it's that real engineering is that, right? Like no matter the DX, either it's good DX and you're motivated, or it's bad DX and you're working in COBOL every day. I don't know that COBOL is bad. I just know that it's old. Then you still make beautiful UX. I think the gist of this discussion and a lot of ST's comments and also the discourse on social media is we're starting to maybe lose sight of the grandmas in favor of ourselves.
Yeah. Also, just to talk about loading thing, because UX, it's a user experience, and it's a thing. Just if technically you need to have a loading screen, you make it pretty, make it an experience. And you remind me this classic story in like product development. It's like with the elevator.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, I know.
Knew it was coming.
They released the elevator, and the customer was just, this is too slow. You need to make it faster. What they did? They put a mirror inside. So you enter the elevator and you look yourself. It doesn't feel slow anymore.
But that's in France.
No,
and
it's everywhere.
that is actually the beauty of engineering against constraints. You see, and this is where we're missing. And I think this is the answer to the whole DX UX discourse. But in the case of the mirror and the elevator, UX is the winner. UX is the winner. That's 100% a UX solution. No engineer is talking about, and that's what we need to get back to. I feel like we have deviated a little bit from that, I have for sure. So I guess the point is, JavaScript, TypeScript, ESLint, Tauri, Electron. Nobody gives a crap. Just think about your user. Um, yeah. However, I think to Fabian's point earlier with the Sandpaper and Astro, because I see Elian showed up here. I call him Alien sometimes. He's an alien. Anyway, it's the dreadlocks, from the movie. No, but anyway, I think to Fabian's point about Sandpaper, like, and Astro, all of the things that Astro handles really fast is time that I save. And it's Daniel said earlier that good tools half the time. I love that because Astro does exactly that. Like, it for a static site or even like a full web application, things like generating pages from literal markdown, things like generating a sitemap, robots.txt, all of that just gone. And what does that do? That facilitates good UX. So this is why I like Astro, because it is a DX tool, but you get Lighthouse 100 with minimal effort. And then Lighthouse 100 is a UX thing. So it's like it automatically creates a mirror in your elevator, for example.
Yeah, I think a very good example of a great DX tool is also Astro with Astro collections. Because if you're writing something, if you're writing content on the web, you're using Astro collections, you can get the whole type safe thing, and that can ensures you that you have, for example, metadata defined for your post, so a cover image, title, etc. And another example of TypeScript being a great UX tool is when you go to your global DTS definition, whatever, and you go into the namespace of HTML and you make alt attributes required on image tags. So that's an example where you can use DX to enforce a great UX, for example. And I think that's the whole point. Like, whatever we do on DX is to basically lift the quality of our products up.
Yeah, but for coming back, because at the end of the day, humans are creating, software. Sometimes you can spend time on tools, and I think it's fine. You also need this time to breathe, to do something, because you do a sprint, you are exhausted, you do hard feature on ancient paper. Okay, I mean, I don't want to deal with user for this week. I just want to spend time on a tool that maybe I will have gain later, but sometimes you doesn't care. It just also just to.
It's a nice creative outlet.
Yeah, and also sometimes I know I create a tool, and this tool can be totally useless, but I'm learning from it. And when I'm learning from it, on the product later, or I take the tool, or not even, and it's software at the end of the day. For me, it's a creative process. So you need to just entertain yourself sometimes, just to keep this creativity. Otherwise, you are just taking a ticket on it's.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think the self-entertainment has to have a variable in there, like, how does this affect someone's grandma? I keep going back to the grandma. It has to be grandma driven.
Sure.
You already became a meme. A meme.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but your grandma is the same, just if you go visit your grandma and she see you grumpy because you deliver it's like we are software engineer, but we are also human with a family and thing like this. So it's about making this world better.
So I recorded this awesome podcast with this guy, very contagious guy, where among the conversation it was recording with Tejas, and among this conversation I'm just making clear for everyone, I know you got the joke, but you made this weird face. I'm just pointing out it was you. So the thing is, we got to a point during that conversation where we both agree that the brain is kind of a muscle as well. And then I'll go back to the compound effect, where if you go and you have this kind of creative outlet when playing with code, and that makes coding be a joyful experience to you, there is a compound effect that leaks out to your user. Because if every day I sit by the keyboard and I'm bored to death and I'm working on tasks that I don't really feel the value, but I have this little urge that has this tiny scratch in my tiny itch in my code base that I want to scratch, and I just take a few hours and do that, and maybe it doesn't make any difference to anybody. Maybe Johan is gonna come to me and say, "Oh, why not HTMX?" Then that's something that it was an internal joke with Johan, but I cannot control myself. But that's something that kind of helps in the end. Although the overall quality of the product you're building.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I still don't know about HTMX. Meaning I've never used it. I hear too many controversial things about it. I need to look into it at some point. But what maybe we could do this in the last few minutes we have here. I mean, tools like HTMX, right? I don't know anything about it. I'm assuming you do because you made jokes about it. What? How does it affect grandma? This is the grandma test. Honestly, like for example, like Fabian mentioned in the case of Tauri, the binaries are smaller, therefore you can build faster, you can update faster. So you save my grandma many minutes if it's weekly updates, right? She doesn't have to sit there and pay for fiber or something. So in terms of UX, it's nice. You get the latest version faster. The grandma test is passed in the case of Tauri. I wonder if we can do that for similar tools like HTMX or
I think it's subjective
Solid.
because Tauri is gonna pass the grandma test until the moment that somebody doesn't know how to ship Tauri, and then they need to learn Tauri before they ship something. Then grandma doesn't see anything. Same goes for and that's the. I'm not super familiar with HTMX, to be honest. I don't need to know something to make a joke at it. I just make jokes. That's how I go. And
I
then
love the
somebody comes in
transparency.
and educate me. But the point of HTMX, as far as I know, is because it is built on top of HTML syntax. So you can have interactive code from HTMX instead of JSX. So the point is flattening the learning curve for a developer to jump in and do something. On top of that, they have some polyfills and yada yada, and that ends up to having more declarative syntax, just the same as JSX tries to be. That's the same point of every kind of templating language. And I think, like, to a certain degree, depending on what problem you're solving, things are gonna pass or fail, and who's solving the problem, things are gonna pass or fail the grandma test, I would say,
but
in this case.
it is okay. Maybe grandma test is not the right mechanism, but maybe we could do grandma index, meaning how far apart is grandma's experience going to be between two tools? What I mean by that, for I think a really great example of this is Solid.js, React, right? React is measurably slower than Solid.js. So in terms of UX, grandma's going to be happier with Solid because everything's going to respond faster, especially in the case of like complex state. However, grandma may be offended that state doesn't update because I didn't know Solid well enough and I fell out of reactivity. Yeah, sorry, Fabian, what were you going to say?
No, I mean, also when you choose a tool, because we are in the market, it's also depending of, if you have a bunch of React developer and you have some people that don't know Solid.js, it's like people batching about PHP, for example. You say, PHP is bad. Yeah, but if I have a full team of PHP engineer, it's a no-brainer. Just do PHP, It just, you will have something cheap that people know and just can rely, can maintain, and things like this. So you don't have to jump in any technology.
So it's picking the best tool that will serve grandma the best, and that is highly dependent on the individuals that make up the team.
Yeah,
I believe so, because and that's basically one of the counter arguments, I'd say, I give to everybody, that when I do a talk, like, to the ones of you who don't know, I'm part of the Solid ecosystem team, so I talk a lot about Solid outside, and a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, but yeah, Solid is so fast. Should I refactor my app to Solid?" I'd say no, don't, because that's not the reason that sold Solid to me. The reason that sold Solid to me is that I could reason about the mental model and I could understand better my app because of that, and that's why I prefer to build with Solid. The fact that Solid is faster and has has a thinner abstraction layer, and etc. etc. Those are all like side benefits to the fact that I believe I can build better apps with Solid.
Yeah.
And
This,
that's
yeah,
my tip to anybody picking
yeah.
something. If you want to pick like vanilla HTML, if you want to pick, I don't know PHP, but if Johan wants to pick Laravel, he should use Laravel.
Yeah.
But is
But
that better apps? Does that mean better what in terms of UX?
but I
In
think
my
it
case, it's better in terms of UX because then I can create the interaction that I understand better. And if I find a bug, I can solve it faster.
Yeah.
Or I can reason
yeah.
about how it works faster.
But
Like
yeah, I think it's
one,
very important. It just, because we are talking about tools, it depends of your team, Just
Yeah.
I will not put a table saw in any hands, because it's a dangerous tool. And it's same with software. And it remind me, I was in school and I did the business school. So I had some of my just teammates that asking me, what's the best? I want to have a CV website. What on I always was a geek, so just how do I learn coding and things like this? And my answer, legitimately, just you go to Word, you put your CV, and you do just save as HTML, and you just post this. End of story. It's a tool that you control. For your use case, it's like perfect. If you need to update it, you can. And yeah, this is doing the job. And every time I have somebody that is non-technical and asking me, should I choose WordPress, do a website, whatever? No, go to Squarespace or anything like this because you own the editing part. So you cut the middleman. And I mean, it's, just in, if your job is not software development, don't learn code. It's not what makes your money. No, and it's very important to keep this context in mind. It's really depending of the context. You can have the best tool ever if you don't know how to use it. You have no product.
yeah, I think just to wrap up my point of view in this chat is that the problem is when we deal in absolutes in terms of
Yeah.
always bet on DX or always do DX or never do DX or DX is bad because it takes you out of UX. No, it's not that. They should coexist, and if you can find a way, then maybe that's not a real DX improvement. That was my take. Hi, Alex.
But I will raise you. If we want to avoid absolutes, would we not then consider, just for the sake of challenging that idea, the absolute that actually the buck stops at UX, meaning UX is absolutely the most important thing for a product. Yeah. So
Yes. Indeed.
Yeah, I mean
But
the absolute that I mean is if something is always good or always bad. That's my
yes,
take.
but good UX is always good. Bad UX is always
It's
bad.
always
yes.
important. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, both are related because if you invest in your tool, you can ship
Yeah.
faster, less bug, less thing. And after, it's just about balance because sometimes you can spend too much time for not enough benefit.
Right,
This
and
is
we
where
probably need.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I
No, go
didn't
for
mean to
it.
interrupt. I was just going to say, I think it's so weird. You get into these race conditions online, and I say sorry, and you say sorry when I've started, and it's like, whoa, just
Classic.
like latency. No, but so then it sounds like really the goal of DX should be to make UX good. And if DX, I guess this is why people are complaining about things like server components or bun versus node and all these topics, right? Because like I feel like a lot of the resistance comes from, okay, but how does this affect grandma? Again, a grandma being UX. My grandma is UX.
But I think it's the thing. It just if you have a product that just works, migrating to another technology will not solve anything. And for example, I can see like Trello. Trello used to just be on Backbone JS for years, was working perfectly. Migrating this to React was just why? Just seriously, from the user perspective, just waste of time and money. Just maybe I'm wrong. Huh? Please, I'm not part of the Trello team, but just
yeah, and in some cases, migrating things to React, and this is not a dig on React, but migrating things for the sake of migrating things can make things worse. And I think the best example of what not to do to affect UX is Reddit. Reddit.com. Man, this was just the biggest failure in my opinion. Like Reddit.com used to be lightweight, instant load, not so interactive. So everything was a new page load. It was like the old multi-page application style. I did not care. I always found really cool content. I found funny GIFs. I found, I found whatever I wanted. But then they, for some reason, decided to make Reddit 2.0 using React. And using, let's not single out React, using some UI library and way more, 2 megabytes of JavaScript on the first load. And I hate reddit.com now. In fact, they know that people hate the new Reddit, that they expose old.reddit.com. So you get the nice old UI still, which is exactly the same style as Hacker News. I don't know if you've used Hacker News, but it's just like text, beautiful. Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, but I think it's also you need to know your user to be able to do this decision, because sometimes you don't care, just if it does the job, it does the job.
Yeah.
So we are approaching time now. So guys, let's start wrapping up. People in the chat. Was nice to see you all. It was nice that Alex showed up in the last minute to redeem myself with the multi-streaming because he came from LinkedIn. So until then, everybody was on YouTube, and I was like, oh God, like nobody could see each other's comment because there were 2 YouTube channels. But then Alex showed up on LinkedIn, and I'm like, yeah, redeemed. Anyways, multi-streaming works. So last thoughts about DX and UX. There was a comment from Ikea right in the beginning about TypeScript is a Microsoft conspiracy to short JS stock shares on the tech market.
Yeah, I took this as a troll.
I really wanted to see Fabian's reaction to that one.
No, but if we're wrapping up, I would just add, I learned a lot from this discussion because honestly, I've been prone to choosing tools for the sake of them being new and shiny, without thinking much about UX. I'm admitting this publicly. Like I just jump on the latest bandwagons if they make my life better as a developer without thinking about UX. I just sort of guess and assume this is going to be good UX, but I never thought about verifying it. So practically, from now on, I will add to my decision matrix.
Let's call grandma.
Yeah, this feels nice to me. Everything's beautiful. I code gen. Wow, one click, everything's great. But what does grandma say? How is this going to affect grandma? I think that's really important. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, like next to our perf budget, we're going to have a grandma budget. Fabian, any final thoughts?
No, I think, for me, both are still, it's a classic. You have tools, you have a product.
You don't need to, you don't need to focus on the X as long as you have everything on TypeScript and no any.
On to be, I put any sometimes. Just really, just when I know. No, but just it's the thing. It's just if you do a library that it's like well test on thing on its way, you have library, so you can put the any on after you import the library, and nobody is aware of it. Just by the way, any has a place in TypeScript because it's a type, but on grandma love coaching, yes. But it's the thing. Just if you have a one-time thing and you don't care and it will not explode because you are a good developer. Okay, this thing it's a no-brainer. I can put any. I can put JavaScript. Just it will not improve anybody's life, the developer or the end user. Shortcut this and spend your time where it matters. And just pick your battle, pick your tools, and also just you remind me a long time ago I was developing an application and we did something, and I was just saying to my clients, next week I'm doing no feature, I'm just refactoring. And it was just, why did you code garbage code from the first place? Just that means that we not have any features. And I was, oh wait, it just spec change, thing like this, and now I'm cleaning, so the next feature will be just quicker. And it's like, you do a dinner at home, you have a lot of guests, you put the thing on the sink because you don't care about washing your dish when you have guests. You want to spend the time with your guests. But what you do the day after, you clean the dishes, and it's technical depth out. And I guess I shift a bit from the thing, but
No,
you need really, focus when it's important.
this is so good. I regret we didn't have enough time to talk about exactly that, which is how good DX can help you build for iterability, so that your subsequent features become really fast, and that's how it affects UX. Man, that's a whole extra discussion. But yes, it's so good that you said that.
Yeah, we should plug that one because that's a long one. We have a lot of thoughts about that. I think the three of us kind of agree with this. The cook analogy that Fabian just made. I heard it from Tejas before, and I agree with that. Remember, we were talking about the DevTools shipping, and yeah.
Yeah, I
So
just can't believe that, because Fabian and I never talked about that before, so we just sort of had the same
yeah,
same
Cool.
analogy automatically.
yeah. So that's like I do agree with that. So the thing is, as Fabian said, like sometimes you're worried about you need to ship, and things happen like that, and then you need to allocate some time later. As a cook cleans the kitchen, you also need to clean your code and stuff like that. And another example for that is that we took extra time on setting up, for example, the Crab Nebula dev tools in the beginning, to come up with the right architecture. And like I think what 2 weeks after we got to the right architecture, we had to refactor it. We had to refactor the data model, and then it took 3 hours to do that because we had the right set of architecture. So taking that time and investing on the DX and exploring the tools and having it right helped us actually pivot like a little bit of our code to allow us to, in the end, have a better product, while we had a tight schedule. So that was a nice DX win for us, and that paid dividends. And then after that, we got to a point where, okay, we need to wrap this up and finish this sprint. And then we decided actively, everybody together, we do this, and then we come back and we clean it up. And that's cool.
Yeah.
About the any, also Matt Pocock had a nice tweet about it. Like, your library authors are using as any in their code base, so you don't need to.
Yeah, it's true. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think if you spend too much time on your DX on you user doesn't, you can't even justify it that at some point your user will benefit. Maybe just re-question, because I love tools, but if the priority is the end user on its way, I love accessibility libraries because I don't need to think about it every time. I can just use a tool and I know the end product will be good. And this is where I want to spend my time, or not spend my time just to read all the accessibility specs. This is like,
I need to shout out Fabian. I know we're over time. I apologize, but this discussion wouldn't be finished without shouting out my dear friend Fabian Benat, who, Fabian and I have worked together for the past 5 years on and off. And Fabian did this one DX thing that, and this is just one case, but Fabian does this all the time. This is Fabian's habit, right? To use DX to create excellent UX. And the one great example of this is Fabian and I worked on docs one time, and the documentation for the product was full of broken links because nobody was checking, and things move, and it's a startup, things are moving pretty fast. So random broken links, people didn't know where they were. Of course, no linter is going to tell you that. So Fabian built a tool that will parse Markdown to the abstract syntax tree, find links, query the link, find local links to local references, check if those files exist, and if they don't exist, we'll fail the unit test and basically not ship your doc site until all your links are valid, until they all return to 100. And that is a rabbit hole he went down, but it's DX.
yes.
But that is DX that leads to what? All the users of the docs are never going to see your 404. Huge. And this is, I think, peak DX. So I just wanted to shout that out. That has inspired me in thinking about like what's the best application of DX in the service of UX. So.
If it passes the grammar test, go for it.
Yeah, grandma doesn't like 404s.
Yeah.
I think that's a great.
Neither dogs. No.
I think that's a great thought to wrap up. So thank you all in the chat. It was like awesome. It was one of the best experiences. Having you all contributing with thoughts and coming up and chatting with us. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next time. Hopefully soon. And yeah, thank you too for coming as well. See ya.
See ya.